man in court charged with Monica Cantwell's murder. Our national symbol, the kiwi, now facing a new threat. And for some of tomorrow's schools, the funding doesn't add up. Good evening. An Auckland man is in prison tonight after being charged with the murder of English tourist Monica Cantwell.
Tonight, on their way to Kenya to help a sick man remember. Londoners face a second blitz as another bomb explodes. And somebody's taking the mickey at the country's unlikeliest dog show. Good evening. Londoners face a second blitz today after a second IRA bomb in 2 days.
This is 3 National News with John Hawkesby.
Tonight the ink's dry and so far at least the Bosnian peace deal is holding. Digging out after the deluge, but the south's not a pretty sight. And why mouse droppings that came as a sudden shock weren't sudden enough for the insurance company. Good evening. Written in ink, paid for in blood. The Bosnian peace deal was signed in Paris today in a mixture of relief and reluctance.
In 3 News tonight, scramble. The troops get their orders for the Gulf.
The government has today agreed to commit support to the coalition.
You know the drill, but do you know how dangerous the fillings in your mouth are?
Of hate and murder and lying and kidnapping and thievery.
Was it all a fuss about nothing? A controversial visitor passes through.
And how your taxpayer dollars are funding the most exclusive pool in the country.
This is 3 News with John Campbell and Carol Hirschfeld.
Good evening. The war paint's going on and the drums are beating. Tonight on 3 News, a waka goes aground at Waitangi before the celebrating even starts.
Damp weather threatens to put a dampener on the biggest night of the millennium.
Love is all we need.
Ex-Beatle George Harrison is attacked in his home by a nighttime intruder.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
And we take a look back and a laugh at some of the century's most embarrassing moments.
This is 3 News with John Campbell and Carol Hirschfeld.
Good evening. A major rescue operation is happening near Waitangi in the Bay of Islands.
We will not be sidelined in this process, and like I say, each day brings something new.
Tonight, the military closes in on George Speight as his supporters prepare for the last stand. Family support for dumped Dover as his accuser gets warned the tables may turn. Five Fingers spark a French fiesta. The world champions war to the hope of footballing history. And they're too sexy for Milan. The new looks for the new millennium man.
This is Nightline with Darren McDonald.
Kia ora, good evening. He's cornered by the military, but George Speight is a long way.
Updating 3 News, it's a done deal. United Future looks set to sign up to a coalition deal with Labour, while the Green Party's hardline stand on GE appears to have locked the Greens out of a formal agreement.
And Gisborne has spent the day mopping up after heavy overnight rain flooded homes and farms. For these stories and LA band Phantom Menace, join the Nightline team at 10:25.
Today's news is on 3.
Tonight on 3 News, the multi-million-dollar government-paid message goes out, save power or else. which means we could be in for power cuts.
And cold showers.
A murder mystery near an idyllic beach north of Auckland. Police want to know who the victim is. Here come the clowns out to protect their identity. They say they're funny, not scary. The small town of Wanganui strikes it big with a $9.8 million lotto win. And the Highlanders' chance of making the Super 12 semis hangs in the balance after losing to the Waratahs.
This is 3 News with Hilary Barry and Sean Summerfield.
Kia ora, good evening. A massive campaign is underway to get New Zealanders to save power.
This is 3 News.
Tonight on 3 News, lunch with a twist. We reveal what made the president wink at 3 News' Duncan Garner.
The Kiwi barge that somehow a boat full of Australians didn't spot and fatally crashed into.
And an emergency beneath the Arctic ice, the mistake that killed 2 British sailors.
This is 3 News with Mike McRoberts and Hilary Barry.
Kia ora, good evening. Helen Clark and George Bush have met, even lunched together. Lobster was on the menu. Tonight on 3 News, the curious and cruel coincidence that's seen a child kill his own son killed.
The Kiwi entertainer guilty of a sex attack, what the judge was willing to reveal and what he wouldn't.
Why the Auditor General's decided to clear Bill English over the housing allowances.
We're there as the Michael Jackson farewell shows kick off around the world. Yes, this is really it.
And why a popular Australian biscuit has fired up claims its makers are being racist.
This is 3 News with Hilary Barry and Mike McRoberts.
Kia ora, good evening. There's been a bizarre and tragic new twist in the case of Wanganui's baby Gia.
Today on 3 News at 12. I'm Laura McDonald down at Parliament, where a convoy of vintage military vehicles is getting ready for the Anzac Street Parade. The Prime Minister has spoken with the Emir of Qatar about the Doha Mall tragedy, which claimed the lives of 3 Kiwi triplets. There's fresh speculation about Dean Barker's future. Could he contest the America's Cup for a Japanese team?
Darling, that really hurts!
And it's 10 years since the first video was uploaded to the world's greatest time waster.
Three News at 12 with Susie Nordquist.
Kia ora, good afternoon. A convoy of vintage military vehicles will make their way through Wellington today for the Anzac Street Parade.
Kia ora, good evening and welcome to the very first edition of News Hub Live at 6.
Kia ora, good evening. A warning, our first story contains some confronting details.
A 4-year-old boy with head injuries and growing calls for the family to speak to police.
Another record jump in coronavirus deaths, but claims some schools here are overreacting.
And will the stigma of his sport stop Israel Adesanya becoming our supreme Hellberg Award winner? Kia ora, good evening. A 4-year-old boy is fighting to avoid becoming the latest addition to New Zealand's blacklist of children who have died from abuse. A 5th body is found from a charter boat that sank off North Cape as grieving loved ones remember those they've lost.
Auckland has officially passed its Omicron peak, but the outbreak is far from over in Canterbury.
And despite a $2 billion investment by the government into mental health, a new report shows there's little to show for it. Tēnā tātou katoa, good evening. The children and wives of the Waikato men who drowned off North Cape. Tonight on Newshub Late, as New Zealand is added to Russia's blacklist, we ask an expert, what exactly does it mean for our country? 2 people are in hospital after an assault outside a Hamilton high school. We have the latest. The biggest quarterly drop in house prices in more than a decade. Is it a sign of things to come? Also tonight, a global streaming hit. Alan Richson tells Kate Roger what he loves most about playing Jack Reacher. And if you're just catching up on what you've missed today, we've got you covered with our 90-second Need to Know. Tonight's big story.